we're talking about females in special operations. We want to kind of set the playing field for what's it take for a male to get there, right? Like you
Yeah.
gotta be a bad dude, man. You gotta be a bad dude. You gotta be a physical dude. You gotta have a guy that he got a backpack full of grit, right? And
And not 50 grenades.
good afternoon, folks. Jake Zweig, United States Naval Academy graduate, football player and wrestler, 15-year Division One football coach, mentor the best. Today we got Nate back from Valhalla VFT, and we're gonna talk about females in special
Oh boy.
operations.
Hey, right out the gate, if you're a hardcore feminist, turn this episode off. Head back over to the view.
Oh yeah, I mean, but I welcome the hardcore feminists, Nate, because I mean we're just
Yeah,
gonna
no, no.
talk.
I'm just kidding. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
kidding.
Absolutely. We're gonna talk the truth, man.
Yes,
And
sir.
I got hard data points. You got hard data points. We're gonna watch a couple videos. You know what? Let's just kick it off with a video.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Oh boy.
I
Okay.
sent you this one.
Marine Corps Pugil sticks. We're gonna get a little male versus female action here. We'll talk about it a little bit, and then we're gonna go into some stuff. Okay, now the funnest thing to me about this, Nate, is not his reaction to the destruction; it's the instructor's
The CAD,
reaction to
right?
him, right?
I know.
Which
Yeah.
we both know. Obviously, there's two more rounds. We would watch him. We don't need to watch him. He
Yeah.
comes back off about. He goes to about 25%. He still kills her. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're gonna start with that. Let's go hit this other one real quick so that we can see what a savage looks like. Okay.
Yeah. Well, hey, do the reverse, right? Because the reverse exists out there.
Absolutely. Okay, here we go.
I love this clip.
Yeah, yeah, this is a good one too.
Oof.
Oh,
Oh. And he's done.
and he's done. Okay, exit
Yeah.
stage left. Got torched by a pretty
That's a
competent.
bad woman, dude.
That's
Yeah.
that's a solid female. But I'm gonna lead
Yes,
off with
sir.
this one. Okay, so the first one, we just put it in there. Female gets destroyed by a male. Obviously, he was bigger. He was more aggressive.
Yeah.
He brought everything he needed to do, and he went to 1,000 at the beginning. He did not try to bring it up. Okay. The second video, in my opinion, was a solid beta male against a very capable female. Okay.
Yep.
And the first thing I saw was like, man, I'll just take her to the ground and choke her out. Right. But they were standing there trading blows. I am going to get knocked out in that same situation because if I
Right.
stand with you and try to trade blows, I'm going to get knocked out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I agree. From a fighting perspective, and what you said there, as a grown man, right? If I'm 100 pounds bigger than you and you're a female, I'm not gonna, and you know how to fight your Ronda Rousey, I'm not gonna try to stand and trade with you because your punches are gonna still fuck me up, and you're probably more skilled than me. Where I'm probably not gonna hit you, right? Because you got your head movement, you know how to fight. But with me, as strong as I am, right, and all these things in my forearms, my biceps, if I grab you and I'm 130 pounds bigger than you. I don't care how good you are at wrestling or at jujitsu. As female versus male, you're just not fucking strong enough to stop me, right? So that's where I think and we'll get into that later, sort of size differences and
I'm gonna
strength
hit that.
differences. But
I'm gonna hit that a little bit right now, Nate. So I got a story to tell you. Okay.
yeah,
So I'm at the United States Naval Academy. Big snow comes. It's the first snow of the year. We were freshmen. My roommates from Houston, Texas, never seen any snow. So we out in the snow. There's probably, I don't know, 40 midshipmen on the field between the football field and this big field we had. And everybody's just kind of throwing snowballs and messing around. So Laura Molnar is out there. And shout out to Laura Molnar. She's out in Colorado doing trail game stuff. She is a 6'1", 245-pound shot putter and discus thrower. She broke the academy record in the plebe summer track meet.
that's almost as big as me. That's a big woman.
Big and strong, right?
Yeah,
So I know Laura, right? She lives a company over from me. I know her. So she's out there trashing people. Like, "Rah!" She's grunting. she's like a bear out there basically. And so I was like, man, let me go give this babe the business, right? So I ran at her. She scooped me up by my neck and my crotch, WWE style.
Hell yeah.
Picked me up over her head. I was 220 at the time playing nose
Wow.
guard, and then was like, and pile drive me into the snow. And all I could do was cry. I was laughing so hard.
Hell yeah.
And I got up and I looked at her and I was just like, okay, I massively underestimated Laura Molnar. And she just bodies it because it wasn't like a little takedown. Like she picked me up over her head
Right.
and then just totally pile drive me. So I had to put in my one major loss to a female in a snowstorm in Annapolis. But on the whole, I've had a number of people go to training, right? Like I've had a number of people go to special operations training. I've had a number of females approach me about going to special operations training. And
yeah, me too.
I think you hit it on the head at the beginning of the conversation. You're trying to go do something that is the top 0.001% of males in the world.
Of men.
Not men, okay?
Yes, sir.
And now you're trying to crack into that as a female.
Correct.
And I got a couple physiological male versus female a little bit, right? So we know that a female's body doesn't roll with a bunch of testosterone in it, right? Testosterone is anger hormone. It is a muscle hormone. It is the male hormone that allows us to do things that females can't, right?
Right.
One of the major advantages a female has is she really doesn't get sore, but she also isn't able to propagate muscle growth the same way either.
Right. And for people who don't understand that, okay, when we're talking about testosterone as a hormone, think about it this way. If I pump a bunch of synthetic testosterone into my body, aka steroids, what happens? I put on a shit ton of fucking muscle, right? So this isn't a debate. This is a scientific fucking phenomenon that you can try yourself. Go get on some TRT and see what happens to your fucking muscle depth. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Jake.
So I know one of the major factors with my females going to SF training is the fact that the savagery level is not able to be attained. And I prepare my people for it, right? Like I know you said it on our last conversation. I talk to them about the level of savagery. It's at the top of the food chain. Okay. You're going to deal with a bunch of fire-breathing dragons that eat meat for a living, and they will be as savage as they need to be, which is absolute.
Jake, I hate to interrupt you again, but I want to interject.
Go ahead.
When we're talking about top of the food chain, 1st Special Forces Group, we have a close relationship with the Seattle Seahawks. We're in Tacoma there. And so every year we'll do some cross training. They'll come down. We'll put them through some Q course shit. We'll go up there. They'll let us fucking pretend that we know how to play football, right? And I can tell you, when they come down and we put that fucking 65-pound rucksack on their back and we make them do these crazy ass fucking movements, right? They all, at the end of it, say, fuck that. I could fucking never. And we're talking about the top 0.001% of male athletes on the fucking planet who are like, nah, dog, no. So that's the top. This is the food chain we're talking about, right? We're talking about from a physicality standpoint, like you're mentioning. So,
and I'm going to say this. There have been twice as many, 3 times as many NFL players as there has been Navy SEALs, right?
I'm sure way more than that.
Way more, right? So people have to understand, like when we're talking about like a Green Beret, an Army Ranger, a Navy SEAL, right? Like we're talking about a PJ. We're talking about a dude that's so far up the food chain that a lot of people can't put it in perspective, right? Like right now, there's 2,500 Navy SEALs, 2,500 out of 350 million people in the country. That's how many there are, right?
Right.
So, but you're talking about like an elite level athlete, like an NFL dude, like, and this is a food chain step above them.
Yeah.
Which is hard.
And I had 2 former NFL players in the Q course with me. I'm not going to say their names out of respect. One was a running back for the 49ers. And guess what? That motherfucker couldn't hang and washed out.
Did he really?
Course. Yes,
Wasn't he killing it in a Ranger bat?
he went there afterwards, as far as I believe.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
But
So
yeah, he
look.
did great things in the military, did a great job, but in the special force qualification course, couldn't fucking hang. And there's no knock, right? That's the reality that we're talking about here.
Yep. And so we're talking about females and special operations. We want to kind of set the playing field for what's it take for a male to get there, right? Like you
Yeah.
got to be a bad dude, man. You got to be a bad dude. You got to be a physical dude. You got to have a guy that he got a backpack full of grit, right?
And not 50 grenades.
And not 50 grenades. And
Okay.
like, but think about this, right? Like, other than a farm, when do you see a female out there, cutting the grass? When do you see a female out there digging ditches, right? Like in
Yeah.
our culture in America, like the females aren't really out there doing that unless you're in Hosky, North Carolina, and you grew up on the Howard farm, right? Where all 10 of the kids worked outside in the field. It's just
Yep.
not happening this day and age. So,
Well, and
all
when
right,
we talk about equality in the work profession, what are we always talking about? We're talking about the C-suite. Nobody gives a shit about the blue collar. There's no call for like more garbage women. There's no
nope,
call for more construction women, right? That's not a thing. So
nope.
that's another thing.
Yeah. And so, it's just culturally. But we're going to talk about females and special operations. Let's get into it. So, Nate,
Yep.
I know you have a background. You reached out to your guy in SF training. Let's go into what are some of the problems they're having. I'm going to piggyback on you with the females that I've sent to training and some of the problems they were having.
Yeah.
And then, at the end, we're going to talk about the PJ that was successful, but really, we're going to talk about what her background was before she went down that pipeline.
Right. Well, let me give you some historical background to how this all started, right? Like, because women coming into the SEALs, women coming into the Green Berets, it's been different timelines for this being sort of allowed. Okay. Well, back in, I would say, I want to say around like 2016, 2017, we had an officer, General Sontag. Anybody in the SF community knows this guy. Everybody hates his guts. He basically came in, and it was sort of your Obama era. I think 2016, maybe before Trump was in office. Your Obama era. We need women in special forces, right? The DEI movement had just started, and so what we did was we basically gutted the entire Q course. We took 6 months off of it. We took away some of the hardest things. We took away pull-up tests. We like made PT test diagnostic. We took away the ruck weights. We did all these things to try to make it so a female could graduate. This is a whole can of worms of what that ended up doing to the regiment, like letting men now who probably shouldn't have passed.
Yep.
But that's some background, okay? So we had maybe one or two women make it through during that time period, and that's a very important distinction for people to understand. Is the like two Green Beret women that have made it through that qualification course, okay? Sontag leaves. And the regiment then has now gone like reversed all that. The course is back to the way it used to be. It's fucking hard. We're down back to a 17% selection rate. Like it's fucking hard again. And that's the point, right? And so my buddy is an instructor over there and gave me a big deep dive. And we talked about females because there is still females about once every three classes, one female will come through. Since those standards have changed back, basically none have made it through. And the biggest things they're having issue with is the physicality under the rucksack. Okay, because in
Yep.
special forces, we do everything under a 65 to 125-pound rucksack. When you're at SFAS, you have that rucksack on your back the entire time through land nav, through team week. And in team week, not only do you have that 55-pound rucksack on, but we're going to do down pilot. And I'm going to put an extra 200 pounds on top of your back of that rucksack, and you're going to walk a couple miles with it on. That's a lot of weight and a lot of physicality. That is what's really pretty much gutted out the chance of any women to have made it through. So
Okay. And so
that's where we're at. That's where we're back to right now.
let's talk about that real quick because Mark Donald, Navy Cross winning Dev Group SEAL medic, most decorated SEAL medic. Him and I have had a couple long conversations. The thing that he talks about is a woman's hips are 2 inches off center. Okay, so
Right.
meaning compared to a male's hips, their femur sockets are 2 inches
Hmm.
wider than a male's, and that
And
too. Go ahead.
yeah, and I was just going to say one of the most common injuries that end dudes' career in the Special Forces qualification course is hip fractures.
hip
because of the
fractures,
ruck sway, and that's grown men.
stress fractures, and labrum tears in the hip, right?
Yep, 100%.
So, and a female physically is just not made to carry 300 pounds on her back because her hips are wider to bear child's, right? Like this is just
Right.
physiologically. Okay, so what have I seen? Okay, I sent a female to TBS, and they in TBS maybe 6 7 years ago. They had a tough dude running TBS, former infantry marine, obviously been in combat. He brought back the combat standard 135-pound ruck test.
Yep.
She promptly tore her hip labrum and
Yep.
got put out of the Marine Corps, right? So I just want people to understand, like over there in the Q course, you carrying a lot of weight. Now in SEAL training, we had rucks on, but they had to take the rucks off because we're already dealing with stress fractures because we're doing a
And
lot
in the
of work
water,
on
and
the
you're doing
road.
stuff in the water too, right?
Yeah,
So,
but we're just doing
but
a lot of running on the. You guys aren't on the
yeah.
cement ever, really, right?
Oh yeah, we are. Oh
Oh, you
yeah.
are. Okay.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
brother. 12-mile ruck mile tests on the fucking pavement all day long.
Okay. So then it's the same thing, but they had to take
Yeah.
the rucks off of us because we already had like 10 to 15% of a class was getting stress fractures without the ruck,
Oh,
and
we
now
do too.
they were wearing a
I
ruck the
had
whole time.
Jake, for your audience to understand, I got set back twice in the Q course. Stress fracture, broke my tibia. Stress fracture, broke my foot in the Q course. And
Yep.
I was a Division One collegiate athlete coming in. Okay.
Yep.
And you know how big I am, right? I'm 6'3", 240 pounds. I can handle a 55-pound rucksack on my back. And I still ended up with those stress fractures.
Yep. So now, okay, so physiologically, we got some differences. All right. Now, here's what I'm gonna say. All right. All of that is great. But the one difference I've seen in the 5 women that I've sent down range to try to go be special is the level of savagery that's needed to meet the level of savagery that they deal with. And so I got to be very careful what I say because, there's only, I mean, I guess there's probably been 10 people show up to go to buds that are females. And I had
Is
a
that total, like
total,
throughout all
total,
women? Okay.
total. So they've had 2 women, 3 women class up, and the farthest a woman's made it in SEAL training is Thursday.
So no females have become Navy SEALs yet.
Zero. Not no one has made it to Hell Week. Not a
Well,
female
haven't
has
even made it to Hell Week.
no, we haven't had which is week 4. The closest we've got
Wow.
is a female made it to Thursday.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you this, and a lot of people, this generation has been banging me because of what I say, and I'm just going to tell you, the standard hasn't changed in 36 years. It
Right.
has been the same metric standards in 36 years, and we don't do a lot of heavy carrying, right? Like the boats aren't heavy. The boats don't weigh a lot. The logs, you got 30 pounds of a log, right? It's just a lot of
Right.
uncomfortability with the sand, which you know about, and all of that stuff. But I'm going to tell you, the thing that gets them, they they think they're going to be ready when they get
Mm.
there with their little standards, training standards, and they're not even close, right? Like, because think about this, like before you get to class up, half of your classes already quit in Indoc. So
Yeah.
like even before you class up, but then they can't make it, right? And then the other thing is,
Yeah.
and it's a very unforgiving environment, right? Like they don't
Yeah.
want you there, and
Yeah.
I go
Yes. And
back.
that's a whole nother can of worms to
I,
talk about
I'm
right
gonna I'm gonna
there.
bring it up because it just popped in my mind. There's a 1998 RAND study, and they asked basically the operators and the SEAL teams at the time, what would you do if a female was coming onto your team? And 90% of them said that I would physically hurt her so she could not make it.
Wow.
And so that's the other part of it, right? And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that the environment.
Well, Jake, let me give you a different perspective of it. Right or wrong, I don't want to look at it this way. Let's talk about
Yep.
operationally for a second, okay?
Let's go
If
into
you
it. Let's
can't,
get into it.
if you can't make it through buds and you can't make it through Hell Week, you sure as fuck can't make it through a blowout fucking nasty firefight where a bunch of fucking your buddies around you are fucking blown up and on the ground, right? And you've got to and I tell people this all the time, right? And this is from my perspective as a dude who's really big, okay? My dive team, I was the 5th biggest dude on the team at 6'3",
Good
240
God.
pounds. Okay.
God.
One of my buddies was 6'7", 280 pounds. Another one of my buddies I have a picture with. It's the picture, I'm sure a lot of people have seen it, of me standing next to the dude that's got the blacked out face paint, and he's like twice the size of me, literally, as we're standing next to each other. Samoan dude.
Oh.
Absolutely fucking
Oh.
massive. He's almost as tall as me and probably 270, 280
And
pounds.
they're so
That's in no
dense. They're
and
so dense.
that's in no kit, Jay. Now, at minimum, I'm carrying, I'm talking at minimum 100 pounds. Body armor, ammunition, weapon, grenades, water, food, whatever. Let's just say me at 240 pounds, if I've got at minimum, and it's more than this usually, right? Usually 130, 140 pounds of kit. Just 100 pounds, that's 340 pounds of man and kit. If I get blown up and I'm unconscious and I'm on the ground, you know how fucking strong you have to be as a man to get my uh, dead weight unconscious body and carry me to a safe location? You have to be an incredibly strong person. So if you can't make it through Hell Week at Bud's, you can't save my life or my buddy's life next to me, and you're a liability. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, you're a fucking liability to the team and the operation and the mission. And that, when we talk about what's wrong, what's right, what's moral, what's not, no. Operationally, are you a liability? So that's really a lens I think people need to think about because it's
And
a big
and
deal.
and I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to throw a story out there that I got from the SEAL teams. I was not there. Let me caveat and say that. Young man was told that he needed to start lifting weights. He was 145 pounds.
It's happened to us. It's happened to us, man.
He refused to lift weights.
Yep.
He got set up Navy SEAL style. He got ambushed. Okay, 3 down bodies on the second floor, and they said, "Hey, man, carry
Yep.
these guys out to the grinder." And he couldn't get any one of the 3 people off the ground. So they
Yep.
gave him about 10 minutes, and they said, "Okay, the firefight's over. Come with me." And they walked him right downstairs to a chief's board, and they pulled his trident and sent him on his way. Right, like, so it's not.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with race, creed,
Nope.
color, weight. You either get the job done or you don't. And I'm going to say this, Nate, because I've been a proponent of this for forever. Everything you do in Buds is baby, like it's
Oh,
kindergarten.
yeah.
Okay,
Q course is the
and
same way.
and I tell people, listen, if we change the standard at Buds, all that happens, and I'm interested because you changed the standard. I'm going to ask you, when you
Yeah, we'll
get to
talk
the
about
SEAL
that.
teams, even in training, like people are gonna die. Like you're in the middle of the ocean, 3 o'clock in the morning with no lifeguards. If you don't have your shit together and you're capable, you're gonna die. And so, like when you guys changed the Q course to try to make it easier so the females could assess, did you see uptick in training
Mhm.
accidents and poor performance on the other side?
Yeah, and I've talked about this over and over and over again. My biggest complaint with changing the Q course to allow women in was the caliber of man that started making it through. Because your dude who would have never been able to make it, he wasn't quite strong enough, he wasn't quite savage enough. Well, now we fucking gutted out the standard, and he can make it through now. And so we had a whole flood of these dudes come in, and I was still operational as a senior dude on a team when dealing with these new dudes out of the course. This was that era for me. So we were
Yeah,
constantly dealing with this. Don't get me wrong, we still had a bunch of absolute savage young dudes coming in, but we had this whole new interim crew of dudes who were just fuck ups, can't get right, because at the same time we were in the Q course, we were basically making it to where you can't fail. If you made it to the Q course, you're just booting your ass through. Everybody's got to get a beret, right? And so
gotcha.
yes, the teams, we basically just said, okay, ODAs, you figure out who the shitbags are now. We're not dealing with it in the Q course. And so now as a senior leader, I get some shitbag that's under me, and I very quickly realized, and I'm talking about, we had one dude who, I mean, he lost, I don't know how many pieces of equipment. He lost a fucking CF-19 computer. He left a bag full of all of our radios and batteries on a fucking plane in Japan. Like, just fucking problem children that, again, all of these dudes that would have gotten figured out made it through. So that became a huge fucking issue for that era. Again, we've gone away from it, but again, That's the reality, man. Like you start gutting standards, like there's second and third order effects to decisions. And like you just said, you gut the standards out of buds. What do you think? And like so that one or two women can go to the regiment, but now 100 to 200 SEALs that maybe have come through had no business being SEALs. What's the positive and negative weight of those things is what I
Absolutely.
would say.
And I'm going to say this, having been in the community and just watched it happen, like we're still kicking kids out when you get to the teams, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, a guy in the class
Yeah.
behind me, like I had to sit on his board and I was just like, Jesus, bud, what were you thinking, man? He did it 3 times in a row. It'd be different if it was one time event, they kicked him out.
Oh yeah.
They
Yep.
brought me in. I said, man, this is the dumbest shit I've worked. 3 times? 3 times. We told you after the first time you're getting kicked out. They gave you one more because Master Chief liked you, and then but anyway, okay. So let's talk about. We talked about females in training. We talked about some of the limitations that they have. I have always made this statement, okay? If a female is going to assess, she has to be in the top 5 females in whatever she's doing, cross country running, swimming. She can't
Mm.
just be good in her sport. She got to
Right.
be at the top, right? And so
Yeah.
we talked about earlier. We were talking about the PJ assessing, right? There's a female PJ now. Everybody I've talked to in the PJ community says she's kicking ass, and I want
Yeah.
everybody to understand she was the number 5 ranked CrossFit female in the world.
Yeah. There you
In
go.
the world,
There you
okay.
go.
And I'm gonna say this: the PJ pipeline, in my opinion, is probably the hardest pipeline out there, right?
100%. I
Like
just
they're
did just put out an episode on the channel at what a couple hours ago with I sat
okay.
down with Aaron over at One's Ready and we did a whole fucking podcast on their Q course. And I 100%
So
agree. They have
so
they have
go.
all the hardest shit.
Yeah, because it's the best of SEALs and SF, right? It's the
Yep.
best. They spend a
Yep.
lot of time in the pool and they spend a lot of time
Yeah.
underweight,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So, but she made it, right? So let's transition a little bit, and talk about females out in the thick of it, combat,
Hmm.
downrange. I have one
On the
example
team.
on the
On the
team,
team.
right? We're gonna
There's a
talk
lot
about
of issues with that.
yeah, we're gonna talk about kind of how it affects family members and stuff like that. So I'm gonna lead off with the USS Merrimack, okay? Combat ship, right? Ain't a combat ship. We ain't have a damn gun on the ship. The Sea Whiz got ripped off the first day underway. They didn't replace it. So I'm on a ship, 285 people, 80 females. It was awesome. Like it was a great leadership deal for me. I was really happy I went after the Naval Academy when I didn't get selected for SEALs. I went to a ship for 2 years. Okay. But the event I'm going to talk about, so we were steaming, wartime steaming in the Red Sea, 1996, and the cats in Yemen were shooting missiles
Hmm.
at boats in the Red Sea. But
Yeah,
they
they
also,
haven't stopped doing that.
no question, but they had this machine that made it look like they were shooting missiles at us. Okay.
Okay.
And so I was the officer of the deck. And at this point, I was still in charge of deck division, but we had an OS division. That's the people that man the radars and information. It's a warfare center on a ship. And the whole
Yeah.
division was females. It was 13 females. And
Oh wow.
so I was the officer of the deck. I was a young dude. I'd been on the ship at that point, maybe 6 months, but I crushed everything. I was in charge. And I was on the bridge, and it was just me. It was the middle of the daytime, Red Sea. We were headed south. And all of a sudden, the ship in front of us, the Mount Baker, which was a ammunition ship, we were just an oiler with gas. They had ammunition on it. I see the plumes of chaff come out. All the chaff starts
Uh,
shooting. That's like,
yeah, yeah,
oh
yeah.
no, that ain't good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I've
So
been on
I had
helicopters when that shit happens.
yeah, I had
Yeah.
read the order that had come out maybe like a day before that said, "Hey, man, the people in Yemen they got a machine that makes it look like they're shooting missiles at us."
Well,
We don't.
Jake, why don't you explain to the viewers real quick about what chaff actually is?
Okay, so chaff is like picture confetti, only made of aluminum that reflects radar waves and heat
Yeah.
back to the missile to make the missile run into the chaff. And so there's these big chaff pods that shoot chaff out of ships to try to disguise the ship from the missile that's inbound.
Yeah.
So I'm probably 2 miles behind Mount Baker, and I'm like, I called on the CIC immediately. CIC, what's going on? Call over to Mount Baker, figure it out, right? and all I hear is screaming. So it's one deck below, one deck behind. It's maybe 20 feet from where I'm standing. All I hear is screaming, right? And I'm like, I get on the 1MC. Obviously, we were already at Condition 5 wartime steaming, but I took us to general quarters. We did all of that stuff. And then I put the gas on. Hey, engine ahead full, flank speed, left full rudder. I didn't know what I was doing, but I wasn't going to run into the big thing of chaff, right? And so I start turning around, and I'm never going to forget this. I mean, I love my captain. She came up on the bridge screaming. And I was looking at it, and I'm like, hey, like, it don't matter. We don't have no guns. We don't have no sea whiz. Like, if we get hit by a missile, we're gonna get hit by a missile. It don't
Yeah.
matter, lady. Like screaming ain't gonna help nothing. Where are you going? Like, I'm turning around. Like, all that problem up there, I don't want
Right.
to be in
Yeah.
it. I'm turning around.
Right. Right.
Why? I don't know why. I just don't think that going over there where the problem is the
Right.
answer, right? Like, that was
Maybe
my
not
kind of
head into the
response.
missiles.
But literally, the screaming for 5 minutes was astronomical, right? And so obviously it turned out to be a missile that was shot with the machine. It wasn't a real missile. The Mount Baker, like their captain, everybody was laughing at her in the battle group because she didn't read the message, whatever.
Right.
Like, it is what it is, right? 96, there wasn't nothing going on. Okay.
Yeah.
So I remember in the debrief, the first lieutenant, who's the basically the guy in charge of the ship, was like, hey, we had a problem with our tactical awareness in CIC. And so I had a girl in there that I was talking to at the time, which broke every rule known to man. And I said, what happened? She was like, everybody started screaming and got under their desks. And everybody was
Oh
saying, we're
my
going to die.
God.
And I was like,
Oh,
oh, right. So that was like my one real world experience where I was like, Jesus criminy, like, what do you mean? And I had another savage one, but I'm not going to talk about that, when Doug Zembeck kicked a female in her chest and told her to die, you commie bitch. So
oh my. Yeah, maybe
now,
not.
now that was USS Merrimack in the Red Sea. Okay, Condition 5, 3 wartime steaming. You have seen it happen downrange. Okay,
Yeah.
and so I know I've talked to my guys when you had, I think they were called the affairs ladies. What were they called when they were attached to your A teams?
Yeah, and we had them all the time, and it's funny you said that. Is literally that was in my mind to bring up. And so people know this is in special forces teams. I forget. Yeah, I forget. It's like not SRT, but it's some acronym. I forget. But the entire idea is so people
It's the
understand why we
cultural
had them.
awareness team. Cultural awareness team.
Cult CRTs, yeah, yeah, cat teams. There we go. And the idea is when you're in Muslim countries, and especially in GWAT, right, and we're invading your villages, Taliban villages, maybe not Taliban villages. It's a huge, huge no-no for the American soldiers to be interacting or talking to the Muslim women. Like our own partner force would fucking lose their minds if you were to do something like that. So you can't get and also the women know a lot, right? Like they know what the Taliban are up to, but so you need an interface to sort of pull out information and things like that from these villages from the females. So what do we have? Like you said, cultural awareness team, the cat teams. We have women operators attached to us who then can go into the houses. They can interact with the women freely. They can pull out information. They can extract information. Very, very important. And we had them attached all the time. So when I say I'm not this guy that's like, hey, women shouldn't be on the front lines in combat. There are very valuable roles for women's to play on the front lines attached to ODAs. Delta Force, if you didn't know this, have a lot of women and they do this type of thing all the time. So there's tons of value added in that. But do they necessarily need to be a Green Beret who's at the lead front element, right? Who's doing these types of things? Not necessarily. Okay. So if we use common sense, we can say there's a lot of value to be added, but let's have some common sense about where to add that value. So, yes, Jake, yes, we in SF have women cat teams attached to us all the time on the ground with guns in gunfights. That's a normal thing.
And how they perform in gunfights?
So me personally, I never had one with me during any of my gunfights. So I
Okay.
can't I can't really say from personal eyewitness experience, but I've heard that they do just fine because they're trained in tactical, right? And here's the thing, we all know my issue is not can a woman handle a gunfight? Fuck yeah, you know why? She's got a firearm in her hand. It doesn't
Yep.
matter if she's 12 years old, 30 years old, male, female, if she can fucking shoot. And I'll tell you this from training civilians, most women can outshoot men. That's a reality. The ones that train, okay?
Absolutely. I mean,
Everybody get upset if you want, but I'm a firearms instructor that trains a lot of people. And from what I've seen, women statistically are better shooters than men. Okay, so I'm not
and, and,
knocking
and
on. I'm not here to just beat up on women and say they're worthless. I'm going to say where there's value and where there's not.
and I'm gonna tell you this. I mean, let's just go back to to sniping, right? Some of the best snipers in the world are women. Like
Yep,
the deadliest people in World War II were females.
yep, it's a real
Norway,
thing.
Russia had a couple, right? Like, and I mean, that's their game. They're patient. Most of us ain't
Yep,
patient. Most of us got
but
ADHD,
But do
right?
those women need to be frontline door kickers?
No, they
Which
do not.
that's what the military is saying they need to be. They need to be SEALs. They need to be Green Berets. They need to be frontline door kickers. That's where I say that's where the common sense breaks down for me
And
personally.
Nate, you know I'm on a mission, right? Like I'm on a mission to fix this 72 black females in aviation in the military because there's 52,000 pilots and there's 72 black ones, right? Females, which is
Wow.
fucking preposterous to me. And
Yeah.
I'm like, hey man, I know where they don't have a problem flying planes, right? Like they
Right.
don't, they
Yeah.
definitely they kicking
Well,
butt in airplanes.
and actually, you know where they're advantageous because they're small. And you know what's rough? A big fucking dude in a tiny cockpit. That's a that's rough, right? So you're
Yep.
actually at a little bit of an advantage there.
Okay, so let's talk about some things that people don't think about when we talk about
Yes.
female in special forces roles. I don't think the majority of America has ever been on a team like a special forces team. And
Right.
I tell people after about 6 months, I know everybody on that team and they know me better
Mm.
than pretty much anybody in the world. Like,
Yeah, they know what my dick looks like. They know what my butthole looks like. They know what I like to eat. They know my favorite drink. They know what dip I dip. They know everything about me.
they know your vices,
Yeah.
right? They know your
My
vices,
personality issues, like every possible thing, they know me better than I know myself a lot of the time.
and that's because we're spending 18 hours a day, 18 hours
Yep.
a day, and then like when you're
So, and
downrange
sometimes
training,
6 months straight,
six
every
months
day.
straight. And the workup is in most cases, the workup is far more tedious than the deployment is. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
meaning like
Most
for
of the time.
us, yeah, the workups like you're on. Like the one thing they've been working on is in Virginia Beach there was no training centers. So the closest thing we had was to go to Blackwater, which was an hour away. But for the most part, like we were at Fort Pickett, we were in Nevada and Fallon, like we were gone. So you would be on
Yeah.
deployment for, the year leading up to your personal deployment.
We do the same
So
thing. Usually 6 to 9 month lead up where you're doing that same thing, going to NTC, JRTC, going to Yakima, going to all these training centers and events before you do your 6 month deployment. So it could turn
so
into 16 months when you talk about the entire scope of that.
so let's talk about on a family how that affects a family, Nate. So
Yep.
from my experience on the ship, all right, everybody was sleeping with everybody. Except I knew one female on my ship that was married that wasn't sleeping with nobody. Okay. But for everybody else, every port call, some people had to go see the doctor because they had gotten pregnant. Okay.
Yep.
We had, I tell the story on my ship, man. We had a dude that got popped for heroin and
Oh my
came to find
God.
out that he had two females that he was pimping on the ship. And
Wow.
they all three of them got HIV from dirty needles and
Wow.
they had a med call. Okay. And the med call went like this: if you have slept with Seaman so and so or Petty Officer so and so, we need you to report to medical right
Wow.
now. And this is an amnesty. They said it. This is an amnesty medical call report. So you know me. Of course, I'm gonna bebop down there and see who's in line. Couple cheap, couple E7s in line, one officer, right? But there was 75 people in line.
Wow.
Okay, now we got lucky. No one popped for HIV other than them three people. But I want people to understand that when you're in that close proximity, like that's good. That's nature. Nature is trying to propagate the human race. Like that's gonna happen. Now, the one thing we're gonna talk about, there is a huge difference between the USS Merrimack, normal sailors, and then 12 alpha males, fire
Right.
breathing dragons that are in shape and pose like when you're looking as you're as a female, you're like, oh God, those are
Yeah.
good genes over there, and I
Yes,
need them
sir.
in me.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jake, if you go to, let's say we have our yearly sort of like winter ball, it's called Menton. You go in there and you look around, you are going to see a lot of gorgeous fucking women. Why? Married to big, good looking alpha male Green Berets, right? Like that is a real thing. This is highly desirable men in a career field that's at the absolute top. It's not a whole lot different than the NBA or the NFL or things like that, right? So you should expect that. Um, and what I want to say for us, it's actually, because we don't have any women in our organization, other than like support roles and S1 and stuff like that, but there are no women. And so we don't suffer, like currently, if you don't have female groomer race, we don't really suffer from that because you send us in the middle of nowhere, Afghanistan or whatnot, there are no women. We don't have to really worry about that. But what you're talking about, once you start to integrate that, okay, into let's say a female Green Beret makes it, she gets on an ODA. She's now one of 12 people and 11 other high testosterone, good looking alpha males, a lot of whom are single. I'm not going to say that's just like, oh, everybody's cheating on their wives. That's not what I'm saying. But the odds of, and also the type of woman that can become a Green Beret is going to have a much higher testosterone level. She's going to most likely be much like those men on the team. And the odds of, let's say, the junior 18 Bravo and the female junior 18 Charlie deciding because they've lived together and interacted together for the last 6 months to start fucking is extremely likely. And we'll get into what's your take on that because we'll get into the effects potentially on families and marriages and whatnot with
So
that.
here's what I'm gonna say. Like I tell people this: if I put 100 seals in front of any woman in the world, any woman
Mm,
in the world, I don't give a shit. She's been married for 35 years. If I put 100 seals in front of her, at least five of them dudes are gonna have the formula to crack her panties. Okay, they're gonna
yeah.
have like, and they're not gonna try. They're not gonna do anything special. It's just it is a conglomeration of the baddest genes in the world. Like this is the
Yeah.
gene pool. This is the top. And I'm gonna go back to like that's what they see, right? Like, and there's gonna be five guys out of that 100 that have the code. So when we look at an A team or a SEAL team, and you go down range, the one thing I'm gonna put on this, because I got a couple stories I'm not gonna tell about Green Beret teams that had cat teams attached to them at
Oh, bro, that's
forward
it.
at
I'm not going
forward
to get into
bases.
that,
I'm
Jake. I'm
not
not going to
either.
get into that either. But
I'm
what
not
I will
either.
say, brother, we want to talk about problems. That one
Problems.
is always a problem
It's a problem
every
because
time.
now you have a group of alpha males, and now they could be dead tomorrow. And I tell people this in the SEAL teams. When you're doing a job that can kill you tomorrow, your regard for what you want to do today is 100,000% different than if you know tomorrow you're just going to go down to the store. You got to go to the grocery store and get some groceries, right? Like,
And Jake, one of my teammates almost lost his marriage from a fucking cat team chick. One of
I,
my teammates.
yeah, I mean, obviously we have the same fucking divorce rate, which is above 90%, right? Because not
Yeah,
not
I mean, I've been there.
not only are you not home, but you could get killed. And now this is what we were talking about. Like now you got a female on your team and you're downrange and you're fighting for your life and everybody wants to blow off some steam and it
Yep.
beats, like it's a lot better than your hand. So
Well, and Jake, I want to talk about because we talked about this before we started that the type of thing no one ever mentions when we talk about like what potential problems everybody talks about like the strength, the physiological issues, the sleeping with other coworkers, right? Like that's normal human behavior. That's normal like genetics things that we're talking about. What no one talks about is the potential mental effects on not only potentially the ODA member, but their wives. Okay.
Yep.
So if I
Yep.
stuff this brand new 18 Charlie female Green Beret on an ODA, let's say she's good looking, worst case scenario, and then all the wives are going to know, oh, fuck, there's a female on my husband's ODA, right? They're going to see her. They're going to see she's hot, right? No matter how much she trusts her husband, in the back of her mind, that entire 6 month deployment, she will always be thinking about what may be happening, what might be happening. And that emotional effect will have a negative effect on that relationship, on that marriage, because he's deployed, he's away from her, they can't figure those problems out. Even if he is doing absolutely nothing and he's the greatest guy in the world, it's gonna have a negative consequence. It's gonna become an emotional drag on every married guy on that team and their wives and their families. So that's one of the like the unseen costs, right, of mental and emotional effects on families that are already struggling because their husbands are at fucking war and could die tomorrow, like you mentioned.
Yep.
Now
Yep.
we're gonna pile that on top for what? So that the military can say, "Oh, we did it. We made a
So
female Green Beret."
so I'm gonna. I mean, it's the funniest shit in the world that we're talking about this because we're talking about females. She don't have to look good. She could look like a fucking trash can. You're gonna have problems. Okay. I
Right.
saw
Yep.
it on the Merrimack. Right. Like I'm not. I'm gonna say this. Probably the worst chick on our ship got an '04 divorced.
Wow.
Right? Like the ugliest, nastiest thing in the world. And the '04 was that was his shit. And fucking his wife came on the ship and fucking blew everything up. And I said, golly, man, well, you couldn't pick a better one than that, you know? Like, come
Well,
on, man.
it happens. And then also, Jake, one more I wanted to talk about. Now we're talking about the functionality of team life in an ODA, right? We are so close, and I have to trust my teammates so much, right? Because in war, much like let's say an athletic team, right? If you're playing football, you know the quarterback has to. I have to trust that blindside tackle that he's going to keep me safe. Because if I'm fucking worried about getting blindsided every single play, how well am I going to perform? If I don't trust my receivers that fucking understand the playbook and they're running the wrong fucking routes all the time, how well am I going to perform? Same for us. If I can't fucking trust you to be where you need to be at the time you need to be there, you're going to become a liability. You're going to get fucking people killed. So now let's talk about causing issues and turmoil in that team and that trust. Now let's say you got a chick on the team, right? A new chick. She starts sleeping with the team sergeant. Because like you just said, what happened? An '04 is doing this shit.
Yep.
Okay, well, then what happens? Well, she decides, oh, this new junior 18 Bravo who's fresh out of the Q course, who's 28, who's absolutely fucking savage, looking amazing. I think I want to sleep with him now instead. She fucking
Ye-
blows the team sergeant off, starts
Yep.
fucking the junior Bravo. What do you think's going to happen between that team sergeant and that new dude? What kind of friction, what kind of fucked up situation is going to happen? Okay, you're going to cause all, and this happens in places of employment. This isn't like
Yeah, it's nothing new.
just
Like,
this is
yeah, well,
completely new in the
yeah,
office,
yeah,
in the
yeah.
fucking
This ain't new.
C-suite. Like this shit happens all the time, but now you've integrated it into warfighting, right? Into teams that they're designed to go out and engage in combat tomorrow night. And I'm
Yeah.
fucking about to fist fight my fucking junior Bravo because he started sleeping with the fucking new chick that I'm banging, right?
All
Like,
right,
and people
we
think,
opened it
oh,
up. We we
that's not going to happen. Yes, it
we
fucking will.
we opened it up, Nate. So I'm gonna say this. So I got a dude that I love. I love this dude. Okay, was a Green Beret for a long time, and this is what he told me happened on his fire base over in Afghanistan when the cat team got there. He said everything was good for one
Yep.
week,
Yeah,
one
and they
week,
start fighting each other even over that. Yep, I've
and
seen it.
then and then the one female, the '03, started sleeping. Okay, and then the enlisted chick, because it's normally an officer and then an enlisted chick
Right.
on the cat team. Okay.
Yep.
She started sleeping. Okay. He said 2.5 months into this, the officer has slept with 42 people on the firebase. Okay. 42. And he had to break up 2 fist fights on his ODA team, right?
Yep.
he request he was like, I had to get them off of the fire base any capacity I could. So I made up an illness and said they both had it and got them off the fire base. He said, because we became combat ineffective in two and
Yep.
a half months and we were in a war zone.
And Jake, that is not fucking rare. And that is a cat team that's not even in my ODA. It's
Nope.
attached. And you see that all the time, dude. Start fucking fighting with each other over some shit like that. That is not rare. We already know the recipe and what it turns into, and it's exactly what you just said. And now we're gonna
Yep.
force that into the team room? I don't know,
So
man.
it was interesting. One of the females I know that was at Bud's, um, the whole issue of showering with the men, right? And it's like,
Oh,
what'd you do?
I got a story. I got to tell you a story when you're done. You that I
Yeah.
forgot and I haven't remembered in 10 years since you just brought this up. But anyway,
And
sorry.
so, in an effort to be included, let me just say, she tried to shower with the men. Okay. And the men were like, we don't want you in here.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have
Which,
wives. Like, what are you fucking doing?
yeah, yeah, I mean, I don't care, bro. I'll be honest with you. Like,
I'm just saying,
I,
like, for me, I'd be
when,
like, get the fuck out.
when I went to Sears school and they stripped them women down to their fucking panties and took their bras off,
That's
I
that's where my
fucking
story is.
love
Yeah.
that shit, bro. I tell this story, bro. So I go up there with a
That's where
bunch
my
of cops.
story. That's I'm coming
Dog,
with this year's school
it
story.
was the best. Like I was like, oh my god. I was like, I don't know if you guys had somebody walking around like chanting something, but I was walking
Always.
back and forth saying, die, commie, pig, die, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It would take me 15 seconds to walk this way, and then I would about face. It would take me 15 minutes to walk the other way. And there was 11 of them lined up in front of me. They didn't have no bras on. They had just panties. They had furry bushes coming out. It was the middle of the winter in Maine. They were crying and shit. I was like, this is the best thing in the fucking world. Go ahead, Nate.
So
Hit me with your.
so we don't allow that in the army, but we do. So what happens is because RSOF has civil affairs and psyops, and they have
Yep.
women, and we
Yep.
all go to the same SEER school together. Okay.
Yep.
Now it is a big deal to keep the men because they strip us butt naked and make us roll all around in the fucking bark mulch with your dick hanging out. Like you're naked a lot in Army SEER school, but they don't
Okay.
allow the
Okay.
women and the women and the men to be together naked at the same time. That's a huge no-no.
Okay.
So in my class, we had a female that the instructor in charge at the time, when it was time for all the boys to get in the pit, the sawdust pit, and get naked and start rolling around, they didn't realize because she had a little bit of a butch look to her.
Solid.
They didn't
Solid.
realize that they had forgot to put her in the room with the other females.
Okay.
And I remember we're getting screamed at and fucking we're all naked. I'm talking, and it is February in North Bragg. There's fucking snow on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Rolling around naked, and I just hear an instructor yell, "Oh fuck." Everything stops, and we like look up, and this poor girl is not in the pit. She's standing there, completely naked, wondering what she should do. And the instructor realizes what's happened as the entire class looks over and like they all freaked out and like grabbed her, covered her up, rushed her into the side room. But it was just like, yeah, man, like what the fuck are we doing here? Like this is
Hey,
what's gonna happen, you know what I mean? I mean it was hilarious, but I like felt terrible for her because like she's just standing there like, what am I supposed to do? Like
I'm
all
gonna
these
say
dudes are and from her perspective, she's like looking at 40 dudes with their dicks out naked rolling around in the sawdust, probably horrified. You know what I mean?
absolutely. So
But
so
anyway.
this is exactly what we're talking about. This is the differences in males and females, and like so when I was in the SEAL teams, there was a lot of this shit going on about women in the teams, right? And they all brought up Israeli. Israel put female on the Assad SALT teams, right? And they had
Right.
to fucking take them off really quickly because when a female got shot, everybody stopped to try to help her.
Yeah,
And so
that's
like,
yeah.
but I tell people like if you haven't seen it, so I was at SEER school, middle of the winter, Maine. Was it cold? Absolutely. Okay. And they stripped these women down to their underwear, just had on panties. They might have had on some of the women had on bras you could see through. They had on little sports bras. They had on bras.
Yeah.
And I will never forget the effect it had on the pilots. So it's SEALs and pilots basically at SEER school, right? Maybe a
Yeah.
couple enlisted folks doing their thing, SEALs, whatever. I had six guys with me, and the whole thing was we couldn't go to SEER school more than six because they sent a whole platoon. They tied the instructors up and beat them for like fucking 3 days straight. And so like anyway, so I just remember though the pilots were crying. The male
Yeah.
pilots were going to the instructors, please,
Right.
please let me
Yeah.
give her. I
That
was like, holy
that
shit,
happened at our
bro.
SEER school. The guys
Yep.
tried to like go overboard to protect the females that were there from
Yep.
everything. That's a
I,
but that's a normal that is a normal human behavior. It is. It's not, and there's
yeah.
nothing. Let me be very clear. There's nothing wrong with that, and I support that,
Mm-mm.
and I'm
Mm-hmm.
all about that as a man, about us being protectors and providers for women. But like you mentioned, now when we say this from a combat perspective, like let me explain this to the viewers so they understand where this liability runs into. Okay, this is it doesn't matter men, women, or anything. Let's say I'm entering a house. I got my four-man stack. We're coming in the house. The first man in the door gets shot. He goes down. I am not stopping to fucking help him. I am eliminating threats. The entire cell is going to continue to eliminate threats and move through, and most likely continue to move through and press through that house. And hopefully, I've got someone that can pick my buddy up and save his life on the back end. I am not going to stop to save his life, unfortunately, because I'm there to eliminate threats. Period. So, that's the way it would happen with a room full of men operators. Now, what happens is, as you've seen and the Israelis have seen, when that female goes down, that man behind her may panic and immediately have the inclination to try to help her instead of continuing through and eliminating the threat that he needs to eliminate. Okay, police have to deal with this too, right? It's like in
Absolutely.
active shooter situations. I can't stop to fucking help civilians that have been shot. I have to eliminate the threat before I can stop. That's where this becomes a huge potential liability in the combat realm.
Awesome, man. Well, look, I think we covered pretty much all of it, Nate.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
I don't know if you want to wrap it up and just say, like I don't. I think that females have a role in everything we do, but I don't think making them special operations operators and putting them through the Q course and fucking Navy
Yep.
SEALs, I think the PJs, like, I mean, if you can do it and pass the standard, let's go. Like, that's my whole
Yep.
deal. Like, if you could pass the standard, let's go. I don't want to say it's a male or female
But
thing. I
here's the
just
thing,
think,
like even with the PJ, I'm not down for it because what is their primary fucking mission? Is rescue, pararescue. You got to rescue my
pararescue.
300 and fucking 80-pound body off the ground. Can you do that? Maybe that one female fifth ranked CrossFit champion, I bet she can.
Yep.
But can the average female that can potentially pass do that? I don't know. So
Nah, I don't know.
I
Only time will tell, Nate. Only time will
my
tell.
final thoughts is I agree with you, Jake, 100%. I'm not somebody who's like women shouldn't be in the military, women shouldn't be in combat arms. I'm not necessarily saying that. I think there's roles like Delta Force has it figured out. The CIA has it figured out. They're doing this correctly. We have it figured out with the CAT teams. There's roles, even combat roles on the ground that
Yep.
women are huge value added. But I agree with you in the same sense of like they don't need to be frontline door kickers. You're not going to fucking convince me of that, no matter what. So that's my final thoughts on that. And I think that's fair. I think that's a fair take.